The unexpected experiment. The laboratory was unlike anything the human had ever seen. Located deep within the core of a massive alien research station, it hummed with a low melodic sound. Glowing walls pulsed faintly, alive with strange symbols and unreadable data streams. Alien scientists, each from a different corner of the galaxy, hovered around a central chamber, their excitement barely contained. They weren't just working on any experiment. This was the one that could change everything. Dr. Xarla, a tall insectoid researcher with shimmering green exoskeleton plates, addressed her colleagues. Her voice clicked and buzzed, translated into a cold monotone by a hovering device beside her. Our species faces extinction. Our populations dwindle. Natural reproduction has failed us. This experiment is our last hope. And the solution. She gestured dramatically to the thick glass walls of the chamber. Inside stood a human male, calm but clearly confused. Is him. The gathered aliens murmured, their voices blending into a cacophony of strange tones. Humans were a fascinating anomaly to them. Physically weaker than most species, yet astonishingly adaptable, they had survived on Earth, a death world teeming with dangers that would overwhelm any other species. Their resilience was unmatched, and now, it seemed their genetic diversity could be the key to saving countless alien races. The human, Jack Carter, stood awkwardly in the center of the chamber. He was in his late 20s, with an athletic build and a face that carried the kind of confidence born from a life of problem-solving. He had signed up for what he believed was a diplomatic exchange program. Earth had finally joined the Galactic Union, and volunteers were sent to represent humanity in various projects. Jack thought he was about to help aliens understand human biology, maybe teach them about Earth's culture. He had no idea he was the centerpiece of an experiment. A low hiss signaled the opening of the chamber door. A small round alien with soft, glowing skin entered. It floated a few feet above the ground, supported by a thin layer of shimmering energy. Jack smiled politely, unsure of what to expect. "Hi there," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast room. The alien tilted its head, blinking 3 times in rapid succession. It spoke in a calm, soothing tone, its words perfectly translated into English by a nearby device. "Welcome, Jack Carter. You have been chosen for a task of great importance. The fate of many depends on your cooperation." Jack chuckled nervously, running a hand through his short, dark hair. "Well, no pressure, right? So, what's this all about? Some kind of medical study? Genetic research?" The alien paused, glancing toward the observing scientists behind the glass. In a manner of speaking, it replied cryptically. Jack frowned. The answer was vague, but he brushed it off. Maybe aliens just didn't communicate the way humans did. "All right," he said, trying to lighten the mood. "As long as it doesn't involve any painful tests or probes, I'm good." Behind the glass, the scientists watched closely. Dr. Xarla turned to her assistant, a towering reptilian alien with dark, metallic scales. "Is the subject prepared? Does he show any signs of fear or resistance?" "No, doctor," the assistant replied, its deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Humans are surprisingly calm in unknown situations. He appears curious." Dr. Xarla's antennae twitched in approval. "Good. Curiosity is a strength. It means he is open to new experiences. Begin the initial phase." Back in the chamber, Jack felt the floor vibrate beneath him. The room filled with a soft, golden light, and he squinted against its brightness. Is this normal?" he called out. But the floating alien didn't answer. Instead, it hovered silently, watching him with unblinking eyes. Jack felt a strange warmth spread through his body. Not unpleasant, but certainly unexpected. His muscles tensed slightly, then relaxed. A faint hum filled the air, a sound he could almost feel in his bones. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice tinged with unease. Outside the chamber, the scientists eagerly observed the data appearing on their screens. Biological readings, neural activity, and genetic markers flashed in complex patterns. Dr. Xarla's mandibles clicked together in excitement. The human's physiology is responding. His genetic potential is extraordinary, if this works. But then, something unexpected happened. Jack, who had been standing calmly, suddenly turned toward the glass. His expression shifted from curiosity to suspicion. He stepped closer to the transparent barrier, his sharp eyes scanning the alien scientists on the other side. "Hey," he shouted, his voice firm. "What exactly are you doing to me?" The floating alien hesitated, its glow dimming slightly. "You are being evaluated," it said carefully. "Evaluated for what?" Jack pressed, his voice growing louder. He wasn't a fool. He had agreed to be part of a research program, but this felt wrong. The vague answers, the strange sensations, something wasn't adding up. Dr. Xarla stiffened, her antennae twitching nervously. "He's becoming aware," she murmured to her assistant. "What should we do?" the assistant asked. "Proceed," she said firmly. "We cannot afford to stop now. The future of our species depends on this." Jack pounded on the glass, his frustration clear. "I agreed to help you, but I didn't sign up to be some kind of guinea pig. What's really going on here?" The tension in the room was palpable. The aliens behind the glass exchanged uncertain glances, their confidence shaken by Jack's defiance. For the first time, they realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its adaptability or resilience. It was something far more unpredictable, its willpower. The scene ended with Jack standing tall, his eyes locked onto the alien scientists. The audience is left wondering, what happens when a human, faced with the unknown, decides to take control? The human's arrival. Jack Carter had always been adventurous, but nothing in his life had prepared him for this. When he signed up to be part of Earth's first interspecies cultural exchange, he thought he'd be meeting alien diplomats, sharing Earth's history, maybe even attending banquets on alien worlds. Instead, he found himself walking down the glowing corridors of a research facility that felt more alive than constructed, with walls that pulsed gently like they were breathing. Every step echoed softly, making the silence even more unsettling. The alien escort leading him was a creature unlike anything he had imagined, an avian-like being with vibrant feathers that shimmered under the fluorescent light. It introduced itself as Thala, speaking through a device that turned its chirps and whistles into smooth, formal English. "Welcome, Jack Carter," it said, its golden eyes blinking in a rhythmic pattern. "Your presence here represents a historic moment. The galaxy watches with great interest." Jack smiled nervously, adjusting the strap of his backpack. "No pressure, huh?" he joked, but Thala didn't react. Humor didn't seem to translate well. They passed several rooms with transparent walls, revealing alien scientists working on incomprehensible devices. Jack noticed that some of them glanced his way, their expressions unreadable. He couldn't shake the feeling of being an exhibit in a zoo. "So," he began, trying to break the silence, "what exactly am I here to do?" The orientation was kind of vague. Thala hesitated, a brief pause that made Jack's stomach twist. "You are here to assist us in understanding human potential," it said carefully. "Your kind is remarkable, resilient. We seek to learn from you." Jack frowned. The answer was polite, even complimentary, but something about it felt off. He let it slide, chalking it up to alien communication quirks. After all, he'd been warned that interspecies interactions would be filled with misunderstandings. They reached a large chamber where several aliens stood waiting. Jack recognized none of their species, each one more bizarre than the last. One had a translucent body filled with glowing blue liquid, its internal organs floating like jellyfish. Another resembled a mechanical spider, its metallic limbs clicking on the floor. The most imposing of the group was a reptilian figure nearly 8 feet tall, its dark scales gleaming under the light. It loomed over Jack, studying him with glowing red eyes. "Jack Carter," the reptilian boomed, its voice deep and resonant. even without a translator. You are brave to come here. Few humans would step into the unknown as willingly as you have. Jack chuckled, trying to mask his unease. Well, I figured if humanity's going to make a good impression, someone's got to do it, right? The group exchanged glances, a silent conversation that Jack couldn't interpret. Finally, a smaller insect-like alien stepped forward. Its voice was high-pitched, almost childlike, but its words carried an unnerving weight. You must understand, human, that your presence here is not just for diplomacy. It is for survival. Ours, and perhaps yours. Jack's smile faltered. Survival. What do you mean by that? Before anyone could answer, the chamber lit up, the walls transforming into screens displaying images of alien worlds. Jack saw barren landscapes, crumbling cities, and desolate wastelands. Our species are dying, the insectoid said. Our genetics weaken with each generation. Natural reproduction has failed. We need help. Jack shifted uncomfortably, sensing where this might be going. Help? What kind of help? The translucent alien spoke next, its voice echoing softly. You are unique among the species of the galaxy, Jack Carter. Humans possess a genetic adaptability unlike any we have encountered. You thrive where others perish. We believe this adaptability holds the key to our survival. Jack's mind raced. He had always been proud of humanity's resilience, but he never expected it to be a topic of alien fascination. So, you want to study my DNA or something? He asked, trying to sound casual. Run some tests, take some samples. The reptilian stepped closer, its towering presence intimidating. Not study, not samples. We require participation. Jack's eyes widened. Participation. In what exactly? The room fell silent. The aliens exchanged more glances, hesitant to elaborate. Finally, the insectoid spoke again, its tone cautious. We need to ensure the continuation of our species. To do this, we must explore compatibility. Jack took a step back, the implication sinking in. Wait, are you saying you want me to assist us in reproduction? The reptilian said bluntly, cutting him off. Your kind's genetic diversity may provide the answers we seek. Jack stared at them, stunned. This wasn't a research project. It was a breeding program. He opened his mouth to protest, but the translucent alien interrupted. You misunderstand. This is not a demand. Your consent is paramount. But understand, Jack Carter, the fate of billions may rest on your decision. Jack's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He wanted to scream, to laugh, to run. This was insane, utterly insane. Yet, as he looked at the images of dying worlds, at the desperate eyes of the aliens before him, he felt a pang of something he couldn't quite define. Responsibility. Compassion. He wasn't sure. Why me? He finally asked, his voice quieter now. Why a human? Thala stepped forward, its golden feathers shimmering faintly. Because you are hope, Jack Carter. And hope is something our galaxy has not known for a very long time. The room grew silent again, the weight of the moment settling over everyone. Jack looked at the aliens, then at the glowing walls around him, and realized his adventure had only just begun. Alien scientists face a challenge. Jack Carter sat cross-legged in a sterile, glowing room that felt more like a futuristic opera stage than a research lab. He tapped his fingers nervously on his knee, his thoughts a jumbled mess. The weight of what the aliens had asked him to do still hung heavy in his mind. They didn't just want a genetic sample, they wanted him to be part of something far more personal, far more intimate. And yet, their desperation was unmistakable. Through the transparent walls, he could see the alien scientists bustling about, their strange forms moving with purpose. Every so often, one would glance at him, their expressions unreadable. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being studied like an animal in a cage. He exhaled sharply and muttered under his breath, "What the hell have I gotten myself into?" In the adjacent observation room, Dr. Xurla and her team monitored Jack's vitals and behavioral responses. Streams of data danced across holographic screens, displaying everything from his heart rate to his neural activity. "He's stable," Xurla said, her mandibles clicking together in thought. Surprisingly calm for a species in his position. The reptilian assistant, Gorak, loomed over the screens, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Humans are unpredictable," he rumbled. "Calmness doesn't mean compliance." He could be planning to escape. Xurla tilted her head, her antennae twitching. "Perhaps, but his genetic potential is unmatched. If we succeed, it could save countless species. The stakes are too high to let fear dictate our actions." Gorak grunted, clearly unconvinced. "Have you considered that his adaptability may also make him resistant to our methods? We've never worked with a species like this before." Xurla waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Our technology is unparalleled. If humans are as adaptable as we believe, he will respond to the process." Back in the chamber, Jack was startled by a sudden whirring sound. A section of the wall slid open, and a hovering device floated into the room. It looked like a metallic sphere with intricate patterns etched into its surface, pulsating with faint blue light. It stopped a few feet away from Jack, scanning him with a beam of light that made his skin tingle. "What now?" Jack muttered, standing cautiously. "Is this thing going to poke me or something?" Thala's voice crackled through a speaker embedded in the wall. "This device will analyze your physical and genetic composition. Please remain still." Jack rolled his eyes. "Yeah, sure. Because this day couldn't get any weirder." The device began to emit a low hum, and Jack felt a subtle warmth spreading through his body. At first, it was almost pleasant, like standing in the sun. But then, the warmth turned into an intense heat. His muscles tensed, his heartbeat quickened, and he felt a strange pressure in his chest. "Hey," he shouted, backing away from the sphere. "What's going on?" In the observation room, alarms blared as the data streams turned chaotic. Xurla leaned forward, her compound eyes narrowing. "His physiology is reacting unpredictably. Neural activity is spiking beyond expected levels." Gorak's tail lashed behind him. "I told you. Humans are more complex than you realize. Shut it down before we lose him." Xurla hesitated. "No, this is what we need to understand. Let it continue." Inside the chamber, Jack's discomfort turned to panic. His body felt like it was on fire, his vision blurred, and his thoughts raced uncontrollably. He clenched his fists, fighting the urge to collapse. "Turn it off," he yelled, his voice strained. "I can't take this." Suddenly, the device emitted a loud crackling sound and stopped. The room fell silent, save for Jack's labored breathing. He dropped to his knees, sweat dripping from his face. What the hell was that? He gasped, glaring at the glass wall. Thala's voice returned, calm but tinged with concern. "The device was not meant to cause harm. Your reaction is unexpected." Jack laughed bitterly, still catching his breath. "Unexpected? You think? Maybe warn me next time before you fry my insides." In the observation room, Xurla studied the data intently. "Fascinating," she murmured. "His neural pathways adapted to this stress in real time. No other species has demonstrated such rapid physiological recovery." Gorak crossed his arms, his gaze fixed on the screen. "And yet, he's still a risk. You're pushing him too far, too fast. If he turns against us, he won't." Xurla interrupted, her voice firm. "Humans are resilient, but they're also empathetic. We appeal to that, and he will cooperate." Meanwhile, Jack stood and wiped his face with his sleeve. He looked at the glowing walls, his frustration giving way to determination. "All right," he muttered. "You want me to play along? Fine. But I'm not some lab rat. If you want my help, you're going to explain everything. No more cryptic alien riddles." Thala appeared at the glass, her golden feathers shimmering faintly. "Your reaction was not anticipated. Jack Carter, we underestimated the complexities of your biology. Adjustments will be made. Jack pointed a finger at her, his eyes blazing. Dan right. Adjustments will be made. Starting with you telling me what exactly you're trying to do. No more half-truths. In the observation room, Syrla's mandibles twitched in irritation. He's demanding answers, she said. This could complicate the experiment. Gorak smirked, his sharp teeth flinting. Maybe you should have considered that before bringing a Deathworlder into your lab. Syrla sighed, her antennae drooping slightly. Prepare the explanation. If we are to proceed, he must trust us. But mark my words, this human may be our greatest discovery yet. As Jack waited for answers, his frustration mixed with curiosity. He wasn't sure what the aliens wanted from him or why they were so desperate. But one thing was clear, they were in over their heads, and he was about to make sure they knew it. The twist. Jack discovers the truth. Jack paced the glowing chamber like a caged tiger. His breaths were still heavy from the ordeal with the alien device, and his frustration boiled just beneath the surface. Every glance toward the observation room filled him with suspicion. The aliens were hiding something. Something big. He wasn't just a volunteer in a scientific exchange program. He was a piece in a much larger puzzle. And Jack Carter didn't like being anyone's pawn. The sound of the chamber door sliding open snapped him out of his thoughts. Fella, the avian-like alien who had acted as his guide, entered the room. Its golden feathers shimmered in the dim light, but its usual calm demeanor seemed strained. Behind it floated a small orb-like drone, its lights blinking erratically. We owe you an explanation, Fella began, its voice unusually soft. The events of today were not as we intended. Jack crossed his arms, leaning against one of the glowing walls. You think, look, Thala, I'm all for helping the galaxy and being a good ambassador for humanity, but I'm starting to feel like I walked into a trap. So, why don't you stop dodging the question and tell me what's really going on here? Thala hesitated, its golden eyes blinking in rapid succession. It glanced toward the drone, which projected a holographic screen into the air. Images of alien species flashed across the projection, some familiar, others utterly alien. Many looked sickly, their forms gaunt and frail. Entire worlds appeared barren, their once thriving ecosystems reduced to lifeless husks. Our galaxy is dying, Thala said, its voice heavy with sorrow. For millennia, our species have flourished, each in their own way. But something has changed. Genetic degradation, environmental collapse, unknown pathogens. We are facing extinction. Jack frowned, his arms tightening across his chest. I'm sorry to hear that. I really am. But what does that have to do with me? Thala gestured toward the holographic images. Your species is unique, Jack Carter. Humans are a paradox. You come from a death world, a place where survival is a daily battle, and yet you thrive. You adapt to conditions that would kill most sentient beings. We believe this resilience is tied to your genetic diversity. Jack's eyes narrowed. You're talking about my DNA, aren't you? That's what all this is about. Thala dipped its head in what Jack assumed was a gesture of agreement. Yes, but not in the way you think. We have studied your genetic material and found potential solutions to our plight. However, the true key lies not in analysis, but in integration. Jack straightened, his stomach tightening. Integration. What does that mean? The hologram shifted, displaying an image that made Jack's blood run cold. It was a schematic of a human and an alien, their genetic markers intertwined in a complex web. The implications hit him like a freight train. You're trying to create hybrids, Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. You want humans to breed with aliens. Thala stepped closer, its golden feathers dimming slightly. Not want, Jack Carter. Need. Without your help, our species will perish. This is not an experiment of curiosity. It is a matter of survival. Jack felt his knees go weak, but he forced himself to stay upright. His mind raced, a storm of anger, confusion, and disbelief. "You lied to me," he said, his voice rising. "You brought me here under false pretenses. You didn't ask for my consent. You tricked me." Thala's eyes blinked slowly, its feathers bristling. "We apologize for the deception. But would you have agreed if we had told you the truth?" Jack hesitated. The honest answer was no, he wouldn't have. The very idea was so far beyond what he had expected or prepared for. But that didn't make their actions right. "You don't get to make that decision for me," he snapped. "You don't get to decide what's best for humanity, or for me." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the walls. Thala's voice softened, almost pleading. "You are correct. We acted out of desperation, and for that, we are sorry. But understand this, the fate of billions depends on your choice. Without you, countless worlds will fall into darkness." Jack stared at the hologram, the faces of alien children among the images flashing before him. He felt a pang of guilt, followed by frustration. This wasn't fair. They had put the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders without giving him a choice. "And what happens if I say no?" Jack asked, his voice quieter now. Thala was silent for a moment before replying. "Then we will have no choice but to seek another way. But time is against us. The galaxy may not survive long enough for us to find an alternative." Jack rubbed his temples, the enormity of the situation pressing down on him. He wanted to walk away, to tell them it wasn't his problem. But could he? Could he turn his back on billions of lives, even if they weren't human? He took a deep breath and looked Thala in the eye. "If I do this, if it's going to be on my terms, no more secrets, no more lies. You're going to tell me everything, and I mean everything." Thala tilted its head, its golden eyes glowing faintly. "Agreed. We will give you full transparency. But know this, Jack Carter, your decision, whatever it may be, will echo through the galaxy." Jack nodded slowly, his resolve hardening. He didn't like being manipulated, but he couldn't ignore the gravity of the situation. "All right," he said. "Let's hear the whole story." As Thala began to explain the full extent of the galaxy's plight, Jack couldn't help but feel a strange sense of purpose. He didn't know if he was ready for what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. He wasn't going to let the aliens control his destiny. If this was going to happen, it would be on his terms. Negotiations and understanding. Jack sat at a long, glowing table in a new chamber that seemed built for high-level discussions. The walls pulsed softly with shifting colors, and the air carried a faint hum, almost like a heartbeat. Opposite him sat the council of alien scientists, their varied forms casting strange shadows in the ambient light. Thala stood beside him as an apparent mediator, its golden feathers now dimmed, a sign of tension Jack was starting to recognize. Jack leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "All right," he said, breaking the heavy silence. "Let's get one thing straight. I'm not some pawn in a galactic chess game. If I'm going to help you, there are going to be conditions." The reptilian scientist, Gorak, let out a low, rumbling growl. "Conditions. You misunderstand your position, human. Billions of lives depend on your cooperation. This is not a negotiation." Jack smirked, his eyes narrowing. "Then you don't understand humans. We don't take orders from people, or aliens, who manipulate us. If you want my help, you'd better start treating me like a partner, not a tool." The room fell silent, tension crackling like static electricity. Gorak's scales glinted under the light as he leaned forward, his massive frame imposing. But before he could speak, Dr. Xurla raised a clawed hand, her compound eyes focusing intently on Jack. "Enough, Gorak," Xurla said, her voice clicking sharply. "The human has a point. We have already mishandled this situation. If we are to succeed, we must proceed with caution and respect." Gorak's tail flicked in irritation, but he sat back, his glowing eyes fixed on Jack. "Very well. Let us hear the human's terms. Jack glanced around the table, his gaze lingering on each alien in turn. He wasn't a diplomat, but he knew he had to stand his ground. These beings were desperate, but desperation could lead to recklessness, and he wasn't about to let them steamroll him. First, Jack began. No more surprises. I want full transparency about this program. What you're doing, how you're doing it, and what you expect from me. I'm not going to agree to something if I don't understand the risks. Cyrilla nodded slowly. Agreed. You will have access to all relevant information. Jack raised a finger. Second, consent is non-negotiable. You're not going to pressure me, or anyone else, into doing something they don't want to do. If humans are going to help, it has to be voluntary. The translucent alien, whose internal organs glowed faintly in the dim light, tilted its head. This will slow the process significantly. Many of our species may not survive the delay. Jack's jaw tightened. That's not my problem. If you want our help, you do it the right way. No shortcuts. The insectoid scientist, who had remained silent until now, clicked its mandibles nervously. And your third condition? It asked, its voice high-pitched and jittery. Jack leaned forward, his tone firm. Humans get a say in how this goes down. If we're going to be part of this, we're not just test subjects. We're equal partners. That means Earth gets to send representatives, and any decisions affecting humans go through us. Gorak growled again, his tail slamming against the floor. This is absurd. We do not have time to cater to human bureaucracy. Jack didn't flinch. Then maybe you should have thought of that before dragging me into this without asking. Fala, sensing the growing hostility, stepped forward. If I may, it said, its voice calm and measured. The human's conditions are not unreasonable. Cooperation built on mutual respect is more likely to succeed than one forced by desperation. Xyrla's mandibles twitched thoughtfully. You may be correct, Thala. Our previous attempts at solving this crisis have failed. Perhaps a new approach is necessary. Gorak let out a low hiss but said nothing, his glowing eyes narrowing. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the tension ease slightly. Good. Now that we're on the same page, let's talk about how this is actually going to work. You've been vague about the process, and I need details. Xyrla tapped on a glowing panel in front of her, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the table. It showed a complex diagram of genetic sequences, overlaid with images of various alien species. The goal, she explained, is to create hybrids that inherit the resilience and adaptability of human genetics while maintaining the unique traits of each species. This would ensure the survival of endangered populations while fostering a new era of interspecies cooperation. Jack studied the hologram, his mind racing. And you think humans are the only species that can do this? Cyrilla nodded. We have analyzed the genetic material of thousands of species across the galaxy. None possess the same level of adaptability. Your kind has evolved to survive under extreme conditions, both environmental and biological. It is this trait that makes you unique. Jack leaned back, his thoughts conflicted. On one hand, he understood their desperation. On the other, the idea of humans being used as a genetic resource felt wrong. Have you tried asking for volunteers? He asked. I mean, Earth has billions of people. I'm sure some would be willing to help. The insectoid clicked its mandibles again. Human cultural norms are unfamiliar to us. We feared that your kind would react with hostility if the full nature of the program were revealed. Jack let out a short laugh. Yeah, no kidding. But hiding it only makes it worse. If you want humanity's help, you need to be honest with us. Trust me, you'll get a better response. Xyrla tilted her head, her compound eyes gleaming. Perhaps you are correct, Jack Carter. If you are willing to assist us, we will heed your advice. Jack sighed, feeling the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him once more. He didn't ask for this responsibility, but now that it was in his lap, he couldn't just walk away. All right, he said finally. I'll help. But remember, this has to be on equal terms. If you break that trust, all bets are off. Thala's feathers shimmered faintly, a sign of relief. Your decision brings hope to many, Jack Carter. Thank you. As the council began discussing the next steps, Jack leaned back in his chair, his mind still buzzing. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: this was only the beginning of a very long journey. A new hope. The laboratory felt different now, less like a cold alien facility and more like a place where something meaningful might happen. Jack Carter stood at the edge of a circular observation platform, looking down at the scene below. The chamber was vast, its walls alive with shifting colors and faint, musical hums that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the galaxy. Below, human volunteers, new arrivals from Earth, stood in small groups, talking with aliens of various shapes and sizes. For the first time, there was laughter in the air, a sound that hadn't been heard in the facility for decades. Jack watched the interactions carefully. The tension that had defined his first days here was fading, replaced by something he hadn't expected: curiosity. Humans and aliens were starting to connect, not as subjects and scientists, but as individuals. He smiled faintly, feeling a flicker of hope. Behind him, Thala's soft, rhythmic footsteps approached. The volunteers are acclimating well, the avian alien said, its golden feathers shimmering faintly in the light. Your insistence on transparency and choice has already borne fruit. Jack turned, his expression thoughtful. Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly negotiable. Humans don't respond well to being lied to. Turns out, neither do most species. Thala tilted its head, a gesture Jack had come to interpret as agreement. This approach is new for us. Cooperation built on mutual respect is unfamiliar territory. But I must admit, the results are promising. Below, one of the human volunteers, a young woman named Sarah, was explaining Earth's concept of teamwork to a group of alien scientists. She used simple metaphors and gestures to bridge the cultural gap, and the aliens seemed captivated. Jack couldn't help but admire her patience. You picked some good people, Jack said, nodding toward Sarah. I wasn't sure how Earth would respond to the truth, but I guess there are more brave souls out there than I thought. Thala's feathers flared slightly, a sign of approval. Your species continues to surprise us, Jack Carter. We expected fear, perhaps even hostility. Instead, we have found understanding and willingness. Jack chuckled, his voice tinged with irony. Yeah, well, we've had a lot of practice with end-of-the-world scenarios. Helps build resilience. Thala didn't respond immediately, its golden eyes focused on the scene below. This cooperation gives us hope, it said finally. For the first time in centuries, we see a future where survival is possible. Jack nodded, but his smile faded slightly. It's not just about survival, though, is it? If this works, you're talking about a whole new galaxy. Hybrid species, shared cultures, interconnected futures. That's not something you can just wing. It's going to take time, trust, and a lot of hard work. Thala turned to him, its gaze steady. And yet, you have shown us that such a future is not impossible. You have reminded us that progress begins with a single step. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, but what happens when the rest of the galaxy finds out? Not every species is going to be as cooperative as Earth. Some might see this as a threat. Thala's feathers dimmed slightly, a sign of concern. You are correct. There will be challenges ahead. But we must focus on the progress we have made. Fear cannot dictate our actions. Before Jack could respond, the platform they stood on began to hum softly. A holographic screen appeared in front of them, displaying a live feed from one of the genetic labs. The image showed a hybrid embryo, a delicate blend of human and alien DNA, developing in a containment pod. The embryo glowed faintly, its form both familiar and alien. It's beautiful, Thala said softly, its golden eyes shimmering with emotion, a symbol of what we can achieve together. Jack stared at the screen, his emotions conflicted. He had been skeptical of this program from the start, and part of him still was. But seeing the embryo, the physical proof of their collaboration, stirred something inside him. It wasn't just about saving alien species anymore. It was about building something entirely new. "It's a start," he said finally, his voice quiet but resolute. "But it's just one step. There's a long road ahead." Thala nodded, its feathers glowing faintly. "Indeed, but every journey begins with a single step. And thanks to you, Jack Carter, we have taken that step." Down below, the first hybrid embryos were being introduced to the human and alien volunteers. The reactions were mixed. Some were awed, others uncertain, but there was no denying the significance of the moment. It was a turning point, not just for the species in the room, but for the galaxy as a whole. Jack watched the scene unfold, his mind racing with possibilities. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time since arriving in this strange, alien facility, he felt something he hadn't in a long time: hope. Humanity's impact on the galaxy. The day humanity entered the galactic stage as equal partners, not pawns, became a turning point in history. Jack Carter stood on the bridge of the massive alien research station, looking out at the star-filled void beyond. Behind him, the room buzzed with activity as alien scientists and human volunteers worked side by side. The atmosphere, once filled with tension and mistrust, now hummed with a sense of shared purpose. Jack rubbed the back of his neck as Thala approached, its golden feathers shimmering faintly in the dim light. "So," he began, breaking the silence, "what happens next? You've got your hybrids, you've got your volunteers, and we've got some level of trust. But the galaxy's not exactly known for being peaceful. How do we stop this from blowing up in our faces?" Thala tilted its head, a gesture Jack had come to recognize as thoughtful contemplation. "You are correct, Jack Carter. This is only the beginning. Many will see this collaboration as a threat, an unnatural blending of species. Fear and ignorance will rise against us. But we have hope now, and hope can overcome even the darkest challenges." Jack chuckled dryly. "Hope's a good start, but I don't think it's going to stop the galaxy's power-hungry species from trying to control this. What happens when someone decides they want these hybrids for themselves?" Thala's feathers dimmed slightly, a sign of concern. "We have considered this possibility. That is why the research will remain here, under the protection of the Galactic Union. No single species will hold control." "Sounds great on paper," Jack said, crossing his arms. "But paper doesn't stop wars." Thala stepped closer, its golden eyes glowing faintly. "That is why we need you, Jack Carter. Humans are not just resilient. They are leaders. Your ability to unite in the face of adversity is unmatched. You can help us navigate these challenges." Jack turned to face the alien, his expression skeptical. "You're putting a lot of faith in a species you barely know. Humans aren't exactly saints, you know. We've got plenty of our own problems." "Indeed," Thala replied, its voice steady. "But your flaws are part of your strength. You learn, you adapt, and you grow. That is what makes humanity unique." Jack sighed, glancing back at the stars. "All right," he said finally. "But if we're doing this, we do it together. No secrets, no backroom deals. Humanity isn't going to be your savior. We're going to be your partners." Thala's feathers shimmered brightly, a sign of approval. "Agreed. Together, we will face whatever comes." Months later, the first galactic summit. The scene shifted to a grand hall on a neutral planet, its walls carved from crystalline materials that reflected the light in a kaleidoscope of colors. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered, their forms as diverse as the galaxy itself. At the center of the room stood a podium, where Jack Carter now addressed the assembly. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of the galaxy," Jack began, his voice carrying across the chamber. "We are here today because of a simple truth. Survival is not a solitary endeavor. We cannot thrive alone. The challenges we face, genetic collapse, environmental destruction, wars, affect us all. And the only way forward is together. The audience murmured, some skeptical, others intrigued. Jack pressed on. Humans didn't come here to be heroes or saviors. We came here because we believe in something bigger than ourselves. This hybrid program isn't just about saving a few species. It's about building a future where every species has a chance to thrive. He gestured to the side, where a group of hybrids, delicate blends of human and alien DNA, stood. They were living proof of what collaboration could achieve. These hybrids, Jack continued, are not experiments. They are the first step toward a new galaxy, one built on trust and cooperation. But this isn't just about them. It's about all of us. We can choose to see each other as threats, or we can choose to see each other as allies. The choice is ours. The room fell silent, the weight of Jack's words sinking in. Finally, a representative from a reptilian species stood, his imposing frame casting a long shadow. "Your words are noble, human," he said, his voice deep and gravelly. "But words alone do not change the galaxy. What guarantees do we have that this will not lead to chaos?" Jack met the alien's gaze, his expression steady. "You don't," he admitted. "There are no guarantees. But I'll tell you this. Doing nothing guarantees failure. This program is a chance to build something better. It won't be easy, and it won't be perfect, but it's worth trying." Slowly, the room began to shift. Murmurs turned to nods, skepticism to cautious optimism. For the first time, species that had been divided by centuries of mistrust began to see the possibilities of unity. Epilogue: Humanity's legacy. Years later, the galaxy had transformed. The hybrid program had expanded, creating not just new life but new alliances. Human ingenuity and adaptability had inspired countless species, forging bonds that had once seemed impossible. Jack Carter, now a respected ambassador, stood on Earth's surface, looking up at the stars. The night sky was filled with ships, each one a testament to what could be achieved when beings worked together. As Thala stepped beside him, its golden feathers shimmering in the moonlight, Jack smiled faintly. "You were right," he said. "Hope really is a powerful thing." Thala nodded, its voice warm. "And it was you who showed us how to hold on to it." Together, they watched as a hybrid child, half human, half alien, played in the distance, laughing as they chased fireflies. It was a simple moment, but it spoke volumes about the future. For the first time in galactic history, the stars didn't just belong to one species. They belonged to all.